51. I believe that's what we're on. Number 51. That's pretty amazing. 51 things done consistently from Troller Game. That in and of itself is a miracle. Sounds good. I've got your microphone and stuff pinned. I'm going to try to order them this weekend. It is my stuff for this office to make this channel a little clearer, maybe a little more bright. I don't know, a little more functional or what have we. I feel like I'm far away today. Now I'm close, now I'm far. We'll see how it pans out. Many a slip between a cup and a lip. How's it going, DM Samuel? It's time to party. I'm still ass deep in all these missing persons videos and all that stuff. It's making me all edgy. All these people disappearing and some nefariously, some just because they just want out. Yeah, I want to start again. To begin again. What is that from? To begin again. To start a new life. Is that Blade Runner? Blade Runner? The end of Blade Runner? To begin again? I think that's what that's from. But otherwise, I'm doing fine. We're talking settings tonight, right? Yeah, we're still on settings. We're doing how to create settings for your game. Small settings, big settings, all kinds of settings. Let's see, what are we doing here? Of course, we're going to wait a little bit, let people wander in, see what's happening. Let Chuck get all the social out and spread about. We've had many meetings in the troll den today. What? How did that happen? Thought I fixed that. I think I had this thing open twice. There we go. Thanks. Thanks for that. That's why I felt like I was so far away. I was on the wrong setting. I think I opened OBS twice because I couldn't get my camera to work a few minutes ago. So I fixed that. The panels, I must have blah, 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 blah. It's too many. It's two things I got to keep up with. Two things. That's one too many. And now the camera's all off whack. Let's see how we do that. There we go. My monitor's crooked. Now I don't know what's going on. Now everything's just out of whack. Yeah, I gotta stop watching these videos. I gotta go back to weird music because these these things are creepy and weird and sad and all kinds of stuff. And man, do people get themselves in some rough spots. I watched one earlier where these people. We're gonna be talking about weather today and terrain later next week, but these poor Germans tourists decided to go do a driving tour of Death Valley, and no one really knows why they did what they did, but they go off-road and tried to drive down this one valley. They think they were trying to do a shortcut to another road to get back sooner, and tore up the tires on their cars. Three of the tires on their car, and ended up on their feet, and none of them made it out. Death Valley is unforgiving. How's it going, Night 5150? I remember talking to Davis. I'm not sure if he's even going to be viewing tonight, but Davis is my brother, and he used to do a whole lot of traveling out west, a lot of hiking, camping, and all that stuff. And he ended up not in Death Valley, but out in New Mexico, lost for a little while with no water, and it was just unforgiving. How's it going, 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐬? Every time I see your name, I think of Godzilla. I actually watched, no, I didn't watch the whole movie, the second Godzilla movie. I watched the ending battle with Ghidorah, that's who that is, right? That three-headed monster. The monster from Godzilla. My mind is kaput. That is brutally down in Death Valley. I did a 2-week stint in 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐬 doing biology research near Death Valley. Awesome snakes and lizards. Non-awesome heat. Yeah, I can't even imagine. I've never been. I've been in New Mexico a few times, and it is blistering hot. So I can only imagine. And these poor tourists, they had some Bud Light, a bottle of wine. I think some canteens. They only found bits and pieces of their equipment as they tried to hike out. And as best they figure, these people, once the car bottomed out, they hiked for a little while, and they think that they were trying to make it to a naval, not naval, I guess some kind of air base that's out there, or military installation, thinking that it would be heavily populated and people, which of course it's not. Even had they made it, if they did not, there was no one there to rescue them. So they were not headed in the right direction. And you watch or you read these terrible stories that happen to these people, and it's so easy to get disoriented in the wilderness. People have no idea. If you don't go out in the woods much or go out, be bopping around, it is very easy to get turned around, very easy to get just out of sorts. And you throw in just a little bit of, deprivation, food deprivation, water deprivation, and that can make it much worse. Anyway, so I've been sucked into this. Every night, as soon as I clock off TLG, I sit and watch a couple hours of these videos. That you carry a compass and a map everywhere you go. You should have a compass in your car, a map in your car, some way of starting a fire. Being lost in the heat's one thing. Being lost in the cold is just as bad. And minimally, you can burn the tires, the car tires, and make a huge amount of black smoke that maybe, if you're lucky, will attract somebody. Yeah, it's tough. Your car should just have a survival pack in it. You just never ever know. And the wilderness is not. It's just not kind. Yeah, just I was saying to you, Samuel. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. One of them I watched, this married couple, I think they were married, and their baby got lost somewhere in Colorado, I think, trying to cross over the mountain. And they, too, tried to do a shortcut, bottomed out, got stuck, and the baby survived, but the two, I don't think the two, it's been a while since I watched that. But, yeah, it's just really, how's it going, King Kothar? Yeah, the environment's cruel, and it's unforgiving. I shouldn't even say it's cruel, it's just unforgiving. It has no thought to your welfare. So it's best to be prepared for it, and we aren't, in the world that we live in, with air conditioning and heating and readily resources at our fingertips, we're just not accustomed to the suffering it's going to bring, and then it's going to bring it fast and hard. Compass, map, blanket, and a way to start a fire at minimum should be in your vehicle pack when traveling. Yep, and some type of blade, a knife, not to fight off, the zombie hordes, just so that you have something to cut, a piece of rope, whatever it is, some type of knife. How's it going, Epi? Anyways, I got to stop watching these videos because they're making me all edgy. I don't know. I'm sitting here half looking out my window waiting for some strange dude to come up and attack me through the window. I like throwing weather at my players, but not game systems with Magic make it so easy to bypass weather events that crush me. Deb Freezer, I'm going to tell you. So, the spell that I absolutely hate the most, and I can't even remember what it's called. It's the one where you get the heat protection, environmental protection. What the hell is that damn thing called? Where you cast it on you and you can't feel cold or heat or whatever it is. I absolutely hate that spell. Resist elements, that's the one. I can't stand that spell because it wrecks my descriptions all the time. When I go into this 5-minute description of the snowstorm or the rain or the heat, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And they cast that stupid spell, and they cast it on their buddies, and that's all pointless. No one cares. So that spell, it's one of the few things that draws my ire almost immediately as a GM. You see, there's a great video I watched on how to deal with encountering black bears versus brown bears. This element ain't got shit out of bear. That is true. If the bear is part of your element, it's going to go horribly wrong. What was that movie that came out with, God, my brain does not function this late in the evening. The tracker guy who gets mauled by the bear and drags himself for 6 weeks with broken legs. It's a true life story or whatever. Leonardo DiCaprio, Revenant, there you go. Man, was that a good movie. But that bear scene is hard to watch because it just goes on and on and on. And then you think it's over and the bear comes back and does a little bit more mauling. And what's amazing is that it's based on a true story. I mean, that dude crawled, I don't know how long, distance-wise. I don't know the distance he crawled, but it was weeks he was on his, pulling himself through the wilderness. Half his scalp torn off. That's one tough son of a bitch is what that is. It was a great movie. I absolutely, DiCaprio, say what you will about whatever, that dude makes a good movie. He just makes good movies. Except I didn't like his the Romeo and Juliet thing that he did when he was very, very young. About 40 feet, people were much smaller back then. There you go. Necklace of adaptation, the magic item most players think they'll never need. Yeah, there you go. Reminds me of the guy who had to cut his own arm off. Oh yeah, that was down in like Arizona, New Mexico, wasn't it? He got trapped, and he took the blade, the knife that he had with him, and cut his arm off. That's absolutely insane to me. Yeah. Okay, so here's the worst of any of these videos. This is just terrible. This didn't happen very long ago. This is just, there's nothing. This is so horrible. But these splunkers, they go into this very deep cave. It's called the Nutty Cave or something. I can't remember where it is. I think it's in Wisconsin or Illinois somewhere. And he goes down like this, sliding down into a crevasse, and he gets stuck. He ends up dying. But I absolutely cannot imagine. I've been splunking. I don't care for it that much. I'm a little bit claustrophobic, but I'm a control freak, and I can't control that part of my environment, so I try to stay out of it. Davis is a big splunker. He'll get into stuff. I'll go in it, but I don't choose to go in it often. I probably won't anymore now that I'm moving on. It reminds me of the guy who had to cut. Yeah, that was in Utah. Okay, yeah, that was crazy. Just uncool. I don't know. It's one of those things, though. My great grandfather was stumping, and he took a chain to hook it to his plow team, I guess, that was moving way back. Put his hand into the stump to loop the chain around, and there was 4 or 5 rattlesnakes down in there. He got bit all to pieces. The environment is just unforgiving. It does not care where you grew up. It does not care what gender or race or religion you are. It's just going to chew you up if you're not careful. So the lesson of this evening's talk is just put a little survival pack in your car. It's just a good idea. Alright, I'll kill that. I think 127 is the name of the movie, King Kong. Have you ever seen Descent? It combines spelunking with this versus horror film. Great. I think I saw bits and pieces of that. There's like 5 people that go into this deep cave. That stuff is I've been spelunking a little bit, and caving is just really, it's really different. I mean, it's just so. And if you like tight spaces, you're good. But the further you go into these areas, and if you don't know where you're going, then it can go bad. And then your mind starts playing tricks on you. All of these things, as you are in a completely unnatural, for humans, unnatural. It's a very natural environment, but for us, it's not terribly natural. I say that, I guess our ancestors lived in caves for the longest time. At any rate, we're not here to talk about spelunking and all these other craziness. Survival pack and a few good berries. There you go. All you need is a cleric. Well, it's part of what's already been mentioned, is how the spellcasters can really wreck environmental, encounters, which can be super, super fun, but can be super, super wrecked super, super quickly by one knucklehead with a couple of spells that they've memorized or prayed to the gods. So speaking of the gods, you think trolls will be right on with caves? Yeah, that is for certain. And I tell you, as many hours as I spend in this office, I feel like I'm in a cave. I went out today and ate lunch out back at the table, and I promptly fell asleep in the sun. So maybe a little bit of fresh air for the troll would be a good thing. How's it going, Last Laugh? Haven't seen you in a while, man. So let's finally dive into tonight's GM Tricks of the Trade. This is, of course, number 51. Thank you all for showing up. Sure appreciate you coming out, and as always, throw your comments into the stream, and let's hash these things out. we're carrying on with the subject we picked up, or we started last week with settings, and essentially what we were talking about is creating very compact settings to start your adventure or start your campaign. Not necessarily creating compact, but how to start your campaign, how to start your adventures, and create a setting as you go. It's kind of simultaneous. And we went into the things, if I can remember them, I'll have to read them because I'm going to forget them. Start small, create a small roadside settlement, a town, a little village or a tavern or something like that. And then kind of imagine also develop the terrain that's all around that. Create the details of the settlement, who lives there, why they're there, where it comes from, and then people the settlement with a couple of interesting NPCs, kind of flesh that out. Give the whole thing a story, make sure the NPCs are tied in with that, and then lastly kind of look beyond the horizon. So at the end of last week, we were left with a small village with the surrounding countryside and basic stories to kind of integrate your campaign and begin your campaign on, or your adventure on. And this way, if the characters go left, right, top, down, northeast, south, west, whatever way they go, you've got a little adventure, you've got a little bit of details, you've got the flora and the fauna, it's all kind of set up. So there's your kind of minuscule setting that you have begun, that you've kind of crafted for your people to wander through just to get started. And this is, of course, first level. You can do it at any level, but we're kind of in my mind when I'm kind of tracking this out, we're looking at lower levels to begin your whole adventure. All right, so with all of that in mind, kind of taking the setting process, the adventure process into its next form. That's not the word I'm looking for. Its next iteration. I don't know. Idiom? No, idiom wouldn't work. I think iteration probably would work. We want to expand on what we've got already. So tonight's first trick of the trade is stage. There you go. Thank you, 𝐓𝐫𝐢𝐜𝐤𝐬. Its next stage, much better than iteration or idiom. What is that from? The Holy Grail. When he gets shot, when the porter, whatever his name is, gets shot, and Lancelot standing next to him giving the speech just before he attacks the stage, and he keeps, in my particular idiom, sir. Clearly, I've watched too much of the Holy Grail. I think I bring that up too often in this stream. So the first one, the message for you, sir. Yep, that's the one. That's the exact one. I love that scene because I love how, I think that's 𝐓𝐫𝐢𝐜𝐤𝐬 that gets shot, and I love how calm he is when he's shot through the stomach. Message for you, sir. It's just good stuff. Monty Python just knocked it out of the park with that one in Life of Brian. Life of Brian is really funny, and just bizarre. It's freaking bizarre with the alien intermission. Halfway through when the alien spaceship snatches Brian, flies him around, and crashes. It's just fantastic. All right, so speaking of alien spaceships and the Arthurian legends, so the next step that you want to do to kind of flesh this thing out, to flesh your little setting out, is to give it a little bit of depth. And by depth, I mean creating legends for it. And this is going to be very small. You don't want to go too highbrow with this. You don't want to have, Odin strapped to the tree or whatever. I guess he wasn't strapped to the tree. Whatever was going on with Odin, his eyeball and that raven, you don't want to go too far with that. But you want to create just local legends. Maybe a pair of trolls live in the region. Maybe there was a wizard once that dwelt south of or east, wherever, in the swamps, had a tower there. Just something like that to kind of give the setting a little bit of a mystique to it, a little bit of something interesting that the players hear that's background noise. And you really want to do this as they're doing their first couple of levels of adventures in and around the area. You don't necessarily want these legends to be something that they interact with immediately. It's really just background noise and ambiance, if for lack of a better word, for the game that you're running, so that they start to learn of this thing behind them. I've talked about this before, but the best example from my own GMing is the Green Wizard. I began talking about this mythical character when they were about second or third level. They would hear about these things, and I quickly dissuaded them from investigating because he was too high level. Even when they got to 5th level, they had heard about him so many times that they wanted to go combat him, and I had minions of the Green Wizard firmly trounce the party in a skirmish, so they knew then that they couldn't continue on to fighting that was going to take they were going to have to get more powerful. But what it did is it created this kind of extra depth to the Dark and Cold adventures that we were on. It made it clearly set out a bigger picture. So any kind of legends that you can cook up and concoct and kind of lay into the groundwork of your setting here, and what even if it's not part of the setting itself, part of the little village or town or keep or whatever it is, it's part of the local mystique. So say they see a tower in the distance and learn that that's this wizard's tower or what have you. Just something, and they don't even have to see it. It can be so far removed that they're not easily drawn to it. And probably it's best to do that anyway, so that you get people so that you don't get them rushing over there and sitting there and trying to solve this. Why is the GM telling us this? There's got to be a reason. We got to go solve it. And just dissuade them from doing that, just so that you have this kind of ambiance you built into the beginning epics of your adventure. And part of this is to later build, and we'll talk about this next week, is to take these legends and kind of expand them and give them more depth as you bring mythology into the setting and the gods and other heroes and such. Over the hill, the one that the dead tree atop it, you see it? Yeah, just past the hill is where the flesh eater called 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐬 was slain a few generations ago. They say his ghost still haunts the range. Nobody around here goes over there on account of the man-eating ghost, but I suppose you could go bother him if you really wanted. Perfect. Yes, that King Kothar posted that in the stream there. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's just stuff like that that's part of the banter in the tavern, or from a guard, or from at the blacksmith while they're fixing the harness on the horse's saddle. Just anything that you flood into there, and you don't want to do it too much, but just anything that kind of floods in there to give them just depth, just ambiance. It's to create that other than feeling that the setting has. It's not just all nuts and bolts. Because that's one of the things that I forget far too oftenly when I'm running games. Magic almost becomes mundane because it's used from the player end so much. So I frequently forget to weave magic into my games. And I will go for a while without doing it. And then suddenly I realize, I haven't done anything magical in like 5 games. And the whole kind of crust of fantasy is that there's magic involved. I'm actually having to do that now. I completely shifted gear because I did so much kind of mundane stuff for so long. In the last several games that I've run, every bit of it has been this other than feeling that it's just with their high level. But it's just got tons of magic in it. Actually using fairy tales to weave things in and out. It's kind of cool. All right, so once you've kind of built legends into it, and again, this is just kind of background noise and whatnot. What I like to do next is shift into the very, very practical, and this plays heavily into what we were discussing before we got into GM tricks of the trade, and that's weather. I talked earlier about this poor German family that perished, and then it was mentioned in the stream there about the young man who had to cut his own arm off because it was stuck. And the weather can be horribly, horribly difficult to navigate. So it's a good idea to start getting a handle on it. And if you take your setting here, your keep and whatever it is, and you just build a small weather pattern around it, it's going to allow you to track, kind of create some consistency about the setting that you're making. But it's also going to bring a level of where the legends that we've creates this mystique. Weather's actually going to create a reality that we've all kind of encountered at one point or the other. Violent storms, heavy snows, winds. That's something I think we often forget as GMs, that I love it when it's raining. I bring rain all the time, but winds can be very devastating, very hard to kind of navigate. And I'm not even talking tornadoes, just a straight line wind can tear things up and really kind of disorient characters and whatnot. So take a little bit of time, maybe study your local weather, maybe figure whatever terrain that you've created, whether it's jungle or desert, mountain, whatever. Just find that something that replicates that on the internet, on any Bing map or whatever mapping program you use. Type in the zip code or whatever postal code it's got wherever you've chosen, and see what the local weather is like, and then just kind of mimic that. If I've got some heavy jungle, maybe I want to go down into I want to investigate what daily weather is like in August in the Congo and see. And then I can take that into my own game and I integrate that in, and I have a good idea of how much rainfall there is, what the temperature's like, what kind of winds are blowing, and all of that stuff. It just gives weather a reality to it. Now, there's two sides to this coin. Thanks, Chuck. There's two sides of this coin. You can go very, very realistic, or you can just kind of make it as you go. I kind of balance the two out. I try to anyway. I don't go. Weather's very, very complicated, and I know very little about it. I've lived it now for 5 decades, but so I can kind of see trends in it. But even trends shift. We had almost always our rain comes from Texas. We get a lot of rain here, and it comes up from Texas. It coalesces over Texas and dumps on us. And it mostly comes up, if you look at a map of Arkansas, Little Rock's almost dead center in the state. You can follow Interstate 30 as it comes from Texarkana, Dallas, up into Little Rock. And our weather patterns mostly follow that. Now we get the other weather, the northern part of the state gets hit from weather patterns that come off the Great Plains, and these usually have a lot of rain and a lot of wind with them, but are slightly cooler. So we get Gulf Stream weather, and then this cooler mess off of the Rockies and across the plains collides, and that's why we get so many tornadoes and so much wind down here, and a lot of rain. So you can kind of follow these trends of how the weather moves. But I was watching the weather the other day, and where it normally goes from the west and south to the north and the east, it was going from the south almost due north, and I was quite confused. I hadn't seen this in a while, but I looked at it, and it was some kind of weather pattern that had gotten chewed up and was just kind of swirling. So as it swirled, that swirl moved north. Now, all of those nuances in the weather, I wouldn't recommend you worrying too much about. You can certainly develop that and really expand on the weather and get it brutally realistic, which can be very, very fun. You make yourself a chart for your months and all of that stuff, and maybe a random when it's going to rain and whatnot. It can be a lot of fun and give you a lot of consistency to what you're doing. But on the other hand, it can kind of tie you down. So I kind of try to balance them out. I try to look realistically at what the weather would do in this terrain and not go too far with it as it actually would do. Because then you're going to get one knucklehead at your table who's a meteorologist. He's just going to argue with you all the time, which you don't want to do. The Finger Lakes region, if you can still find it, the 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐬 box set contains a very detailed system to generate weather. Oh, no, that's very cool. I did not know that. I probably did back in the day because I had the box set. But even once I got the box set, I used the folio. I love that folio version of 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐬. I got it around here somewhere. The big one. It was like 14 inches tall or something. It had one little book and 2 maps, if I recall. That's the 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐬 I was introduced to, and it kind of remained my staple forever and a day. But that's a good tip there. There's a good chance that's on the internet somewhere. And I know it's not super detailed, but there is one in the Castle Keeper's Guide. You can track that down as well. But there's places even online you can pop in and figure your local weather. The Finger Lakes region of New York gets a strange lake effect set of snow that doesn't match the outlying area. That's the detailed stuff too that can be one you can bring in, and it's very, very cool, but it can bog you down a little bit. But what's cool about that type of stuff is it breaks the norm, right? And if you can envision that beforehand, you can get the characters kind of settled into something, but then they move into this different terrain, so in the same area, the weather suddenly changes. And suddenly they've prepared for something, and suddenly they have to face something else, and then the weather becomes this encounter until that stupid resist element spell is cast. Then it just all kind of unravels. But that's a cool point. That's the thing about so many of our weather systems local. It's very weird. We get more tornadoes south of the Arkansas River than north of the Arkansas River, in and around Little Rock. And all I can imagine, I've never asked anyone, that's something I am assuming, from watching this stuff, and I just wonder if the wind doesn't break up over the river, does it get cooler, and that the tornadoes they have to kind of reform? I have no idea. It just seems that way. I see King Kothar says, I think extremes in weather should be scripted. Otherwise, all you really need is a temperature range for the area based on the season, and just pick something reasonable with precipitation and wind that flows from one stage to the next. People tend to go overboard with the weather systems, but I've also been in games where it's sunny and 70 for every single session in the world. Feels substantially less real. Just remember weather exists and change it from time to time. Yeah, that's a good point. Unless you're in Hawaii, I lived there for 3 years, and the weather, or 2 years, and the weather was pretty much the same every day, so it never really changed. We had a hurricane for a very brief period, but beyond that, it Um, yeah, but now you're dead on there, King Kothar. Big weather patterns, tornadoes, hurricanes, blizzards, you know, devastating heat waves, even droughts. You really do need to plan that as an encounter and not. I mean, you can randomly roll that, but that's something huge that's a game changer, right? I mean, you characters can get killed in this type of stuff if you bring weather in as a device to kind of guide your game. So yeah, I would definitely script things like that. I don't think I've once in a while I'll probably randomly roll a blizzard maybe or a flash flood, but beyond that I want to have a little bit of control of it. I don't think I've ever actually had like a tornado go through my campaign where it affected the play. I don't think I've ever done that, nor a hurricane. Maybe a hurricane because we've done a few. Yeah, I'm sure I've done a hurricane because we've done a few sea adventures, but I don't know that I've ever done a tornado, which is odd because I live in Tornado Alley. So there you go. If you're on a ship at sea, the weather makes a big difference to travel. So you might want to. Man, DM, you and I are right in sync tonight. we're right in sync. Yeah, that's the thing about. Man, ocean adventures are so hard to do because you're so limited to the terrain that you're on. It's the ocean, and the boat, of course, is a self-contained, environment that it's difficult to do things on. I've tried a number of ocean adventures, and I don't know that they've ever been successful as soon as they've left the land. But weather is a huge part of any ocean adventures, there is no doubt, and you've got to have a good handle on that to some degree at least. Let's see, Willie the Rat. LOTR scholars say, Lord of the Rings scholars say that the weather in Mordor is similar to West Texas. What is that song? It's a song by Johnny Cash. It's from his Gunfighter album, and it's Hell. I can't remember the name of it, but God gives the devil Texas because it's too hot. I can't remember. It's such a great song. I cannot remember it. Go to you. It's on YouTube. Go to Johnny Cash's Gunfighter Ballad. Oh man, is it a fantastic song about how hot and then the devil proceeds to people Texas with scorpion snakes and blistering heat and all this other stuff. This is a great song. And only Johnny Cash can relate a tale. So there you go. King Killer Samuel, I would agree when it comes to open sea. Yeah, one of these days I want to master doing ocean voyages, ocean adventures. I have not quite got there. I really want to know what that Johnny Cash song is. It's driving me crazy now. Let's see if I can find that real quick. I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan, one of my earliest. Let's see, Gunfighter Ballad. Good stuff. Alright, that's not the right album. Dagnabbit. Gunfighter Sea. Alright, I'll have to track it down. Gunfighter Ballads is a Marty Robbins album. Surely some of you guys out there know the Johnny Cash Texas. I'm just going to type in Texas. Then I'm not going to look for this anymore. Here we go. Mean as Hell. The True West. Johnny Cash, The True West. I believe... Well, my speakers are dead, but I believe... I don't know. It might be Mean as Hell. Probably not, but it's definitely the album Ballads of the True West. So check that out. Great Johnny Cash song on there about Texas being hell and all that. Absolutely hilarious stuff. Good stuff for Mr. Cash. So once you've kind of established a weather pattern and settled into your comfort zone there, it's time to flesh out a little bit of the network beyond your setting. So you've got this settlement, you've got the terrain around it, you've given it a story and a little bit of detail. Now you've given it some legends to give it a little bit of a steep, and you've created local weather patterns. It's now a good idea to place it in the broader context of what you're doing as a GM or where you're going in your world creation process. And here's where, when I do it, I create a trade network. And I really don't go into massive detail on this. What I really want to know is why why the town is here, how it gets its regular supplies like sugar, barley, flour, stuff like that, metal for harnesses for the horses or whatever it is that they have got here. Now, if they're not growing it locally, they got to get it from somewhere. How do they get it? Is it a weekly caravan, a monthly caravan, and where does that caravan come from? Are there others in the region that they're trading with? Are there hunters that come out of the north that bring in pelts from, deer that they've hunted or what have you? Whatever it is that supplies this settlement, and what do these people trade in return? Or if it's anything, and it may not be anything, it may just be that it's a roadside tavern and they get paid in gold from travelers like yourselves or like your party members, and then they take these golds to whatever area to buy whatever supplies they're in need of. And this trade network is going to start, again, I don't go into a lot of detail at this level, I just kind of envision how I want goods to be trafficked hither and yon. And this just gives me a good idea of where I'm going with the whole general region. It's just, trade is insanely important. Let's see, okay, King Kothar went off topic for a minute. In my opinion, the open ocean adventure is done best with an Odyssey-type scenario where they have to clearly define destination, mostly island-to-island style hopping, opportunity for disembarking, encouraging weird monsters and people, pirates. Yeah, now that's long forgotten. Wizards and so on. No, yeah, right along with Willie and DM, I agree with you. The only one that I've done successfully, I think was fun, was sort of like that. It was they took a boat and they did a coastal adventure in the world of Air around the Gelderland and all the way up to the sea of Avalon. And there was probably 6 adventures. There was one at the sea, but it was actually on an island at sea, so that doesn't really count as a sea adventure. And then the rest were coastal things, encounters and whatnot. The problem with ocean adventures, one of the problems, if you're going to go pure boat, if their boat sinks, you've got a problem. Even resist elements is not going to help those characters. They're either going to go Gilligan's Island, or they're just going to die because they're going to sink to the bottom of the ocean and they can't swim out of it. So that's one of the things as a GM I try to avoid is life or death. The scenario is you either survive or you're dead. I like somewhere in the middle where you can survive but be all banged up. And ocean voyages are just, they're not bad. Your boat goes down, the boat goes down, and that's the end of it. So I think Kothar, you're right. If you want to do those types of things, keep it close to some kind of land so that you have it, or something along those lines. Maybe go all mystical if you have to, and have them passing in and out of other realms, but whatever it is, keep them off of the deep sea. So once you've done, the weather started getting rough. Man, I haven't watched Gilligan's Island in forever. That was a great show. Oh, Lord of mercy. Gilligan and Skipper. I love that Skipper dude. I can't remember his name, but I read he's one of those actors. Obviously he was typecast. That's all. He did a lot of movies before Gilligan's Island, but after Gilligan's Island, that's all he was known for. But he frequently walked around Hollywood or wherever he lived. I know it was in the Valley, with his Skipper hat in his pocket, so that if kids came up to him and asked him, he would immediately put his Skipper hat on and be the Skipper, Alan Hale. Yeah, which is just pure awesome. I mean, if I know that a lot of actors get kind of embittered because they get typecast, and I understand that, and that's all cool. But he embraced that role of the Skipper and just to the end played it out for the kids who all grew up on Gilligan's Island, which is just very cool. It is cool to watch Alan Hale appear, and you'll be watching some old western from the 50s or black and white movie, and there goes the Skipper. It completely breaks me. The suspension of disbelief is broken, and I keep waiting for him to get on the boat and go see Gilligan on the island. Dobie Gillis. Was that Gilligan's original show? It was Dobie Gillis. The Adventures of Dobie Gillis. Something. That's way before my time, but I do remember seeing it in black and white once in a while. All right, so once you've established your trade networks and kind of created this slightly larger region that you have a better you have a better understanding of how things are moving back and forth across your small setting here. It's time to flesh out the local You can almost follow the way my present campaign developed. It started around 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐬, darkened fold, fleshed all that area out. And the trade networks went from Greenbrier to the 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐬 and on to Petersboro. And Petersboro is the town, what I'm talking about here. Once you've kind of established your trade network, create a small town somewhere in the vicinity. It can be 1 day's journey or 10 days journey, something. None of that matters. That just kind of, you just want to have an idea of how long it's going to take the characters to get from the settlement to the town in order to, if they want to do overland and whatnot. So where you put it, it doesn't matter. You don't really have to do it to put it anywhere immediately. Just have an idea of what is the next major town in your area, in the environs, so that the characters can go there and resupply. They can trade stuff that they've gotten. They can, if you allow magic to be purchased in marketplaces, maybe they can get something like that. Maybe they can get greater healing or hire an NPC or whatever it is that they need. Wait a minute, we have a correction here. The elder Alan Hale was Little John in Errol Flynn's Robin Hood Adventure. Holy Christmas! So Alan Hale Jr. was the skipper, and his father was Alan Hale, who worked alongside Errol Flynn. Oh, that's very cool. Man, I hadn't seen that version of Robin Hood since I was knee-high to a jumping frog. I must have been 8 or 9 watching it on Saturday morning. Good Lord. I remember the sword fight, it was like a castle and some steps. Man, it's a long time ago. It was a long time ago that I had watched Errol Flynn. That's very cool. So, well, once you trade networks, you're building this town, and you want to people this town with a little bit more than your village. You don't have to flesh it out. I wouldn't recommend you flesh it out. I would leave a lot of it gray so that you can build into it. But you want to create a town government. You want to have guilds that are there, a couple of taverns, and get a good idea of what the characters can buy and sell there. It would be normal. Nothing that's kind of too beyond what you want to do. So just kind of flesh it out. Definitely give it a name, and give it a name that you're going to be happy with. That's going to fit the milieu that you're building. I'm still obsessing over this Johnny Cash song that's driving me crazy. Let's see. It's going to be one of his narrations. Damn it. Damn you, Johnny Cash. Anyway, I'm going to put this link up for those of you who might be interested. My guess is it's one of his narrations. But that's the link. I'm kind of obsessed with that song. I don't know what. I'm going to have to find it as soon as this string is over. Always had 1 or 2 details about the town that make it stand out from the generic medieval city. Number 22,609. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, King Cobra. You want to give it a little bit of flavor, something. And that'll be a nice segue into the next GM's trick, to number 5 tonight. But you definitely want to give it something so that, so there's not that standard thing that we see in every TV show. And here's a good point. One of the reasons I have trouble with so much modern fantasy stuff is there's almost always the character is a brooding guy in dark clothing with the sword, and he's super good at it. And I'm tired of brooding heroes. I'm just exhausted of it. Do something kind of different. The Witcher, I kind of got into The Witcher after a couple of episodes. I really liked the main guy. But the minstrel I thought was kind of cool. But you can actually break out, do something a little different, and that's a great point, Kothar. Just kind of add a little bit of flavor to your town. Give it whatever cultural region of the earth that you want to borrow or steal from or adapt to your game. Bring that in here and kind of give it a little bit of flair to it, just a little bit. I think that cash on you. I mean, it may be there's one that very well be it. Man, your name's Far Wander. That's what I'm going to call you. There's another one on there that's about. Let's see which one is. I love this album. I haven't listened to this forever and a half. Okay, I think you're right because Sam Hall was the one I was thinking is mean as hell, but Sam Hall is actually the song just about a mean person. And so I think Mean as Hell maybe. So check that song out. It's a fantastic song. Let's see, anti-heroes are so, but yeah, they are. I mean, I'm tired of it. I get it. You want to have the dark brooding guy, I'm just tired of it. It's been done to death. It's one reason that I watch a TV show for like 3 minutes and just turn it off. And what was it that I had to go to 3 or 4 times? I can't remember. Was it The Expanse? No, it wasn't The Expanse. It was one of these TV shows. I mean, it took me. The Last Kingdom. It turned out to be one of my favorite TV shows of all time. But the beginning was it was just the same old thing over and over again that it took me forever to get to the first episode. Once I did, I got very invested in that TV show, and I recommend that thing all day long. And it's one of those few shows that, you take like Justified, it starts fantastic, and it slowly kind of, actually Justified stays good the whole time. So shows get worse usually as they progress, but The Last Kingdom did the exact opposite. It was kind of interesting, cool in the beginning, but by season 2, it's getting really fascinating. By season 3, it's just awesome. This most recent season was just as good. So I definitely recommend that to everybody. But yeah, definitely. So develop your town, flesh your town out. Yeah, I got Chuck watching Justified a couple of weeks ago. I think when he was laid up with the Kathmandu, he started watching it. Justified has to be one of the best TV shows I've ever watched. And if you watch it, definitely watch it for 5 or 6 episodes so that you get a good idea of the criminal in there, the main kind of anti-guy, who's Boyd Crowder. That's the character, played by Walter Goggins. And Goggins does, not only does Timmy Oliphant does the perfect John Wayne-esque martial, cool guy, whatever, but the dialogue with the Boyd Crowder character is nothing like I've ever heard. Once they get into it, now it takes them a few episodes and maybe even deeper into season 1, but their banter back and forth is just, it's what you want. It's what you want to read, and it's what you want to see. It is so very, very well done. I would definitely watch. Definitely, if you have not watched Justified, watch Justified. 6 seasons, I believe it's on. What's it on, Chuck? It's on Prime right now, I think. It might be on Hulu, but I think it's on Prime. I get all that. I got all those things, and I get them all jumbled in my head when I'm watching it, when I'm not. So after you've created your trade network, first off, thank you all for showing up tonight, and if you haven't, please give us a follow and throw Hulu. There you go. And please throw our Twitch channel around your social networks and let everybody know. Come over and give us a follow. We surely do appreciate it. So once you've created your town, your trade network in your town, it's now kind of much like last week. The last trick of the trade was to step back and look at your overall creation. And this is kind of a big picture type thing. You just want to choose a polity for the region. And it really is this a feudal kingdom that you're developing here? Is it an imperial one? Is it city-states kind of based off of ancient Greece, or city-states based off of Italy in the 1500s? Is it more just anarchical, where the towns are all just kind of, there's no real government? Is it wilderness? Is there really no polity that's controlling everything in this region? Now, to stress that this isn't your world, this isn't the whole thing, this is just this area, 300 miles over can be a different type of governance system. But what this is basically doing is giving you, I gotta do my thing in the game. Right? Did that do it? Did I do it wrong? I did it wrong. Hey, what happened to polity, man? Chuck, I think I messed up your panels. I officially messed up your panels. I don't even know what's going on. Wait a minute. Chuck, I don't know what I did to your stuff. You put all this effort into these panels, and I wrecked it. I don't even get 3 back. That should be 1. I've lost my ever-loving mind. What are you guys looking at? Going to town? Yeah, I don't know. All of them loaded, but number 5. Now I just want to know what happened to number 5. Which is weird, because that's the one I saw earlier. I'm just clicking crap now. I don't know what I'm doing. Alright, it's just gone, Chuck. So we're going to town's just going to have to be polity. That's really weird. Oh, Chenault. Alright, so that, now I can't get any of them back. I don't know what I'm doing. Alright, I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm just going to leave it be. Poor Chuck, he put so much work into these things. What happened to it? It was there. like I say, I think I've done something, and I just lost that. What does CC mean? I don't even know what that means. Wait. No. Okay. There it is. I found it. I'm going backwards. Okay. No, it was the best one. All right. Well, I found it. I got confused. You know, it doesn't matter. I got them turned upside down, so I have to do it in reverse. I don't know why I won't just switch the images, and then I have to do it in order. But I'll forget about it as soon as I stop the stream and move on. I'm just an idiot. There you go. Yeah, exactly. All right, so there's Chuck's fifth panel. That should give us something to say. So 𝐓𝐫𝐢𝐜𝐤𝐬. So we're really just looking at what we're going to do for the region, how it's going to be governed, how people are going to interact. And all this is really, for me, when I do this step, for me, this is going to create an image in my head. I think I mentioned a few weeks ago that a couple months ago I read a book on the sack of Rome of 1557 or 1537 or something. And I'd never really read this part of history. It goes to Johnny Cash, yeah. Johnny Cash did it. I'd never really read this part of history, but when I read about these cities, these small cities and these small little territories, the Papal States and all of those, and the absolute insane brutality of these wars and just the horror of it all, I thought, well, this is really kind of an interesting thing to bring into the game. This is something I've never really done, is this type of city-state. I've done Germanic-esque, you know, the Hanseatic League city-state. You can find those in here. But I like the concept of it. So if you were to take that concept and drop it on your area, you instantly know in your head, as you go forward, as you develop new things in the setting, what the region's polity is going to be, how people are going to interact, if there's lords, if there's not lords, if there's knights, if there's not knights, and who serves what kind of governing body, what religion's going to play into it. You get a whole lot of play out of just kind of deciding on where you want it to be. Obviously, I think a lot of them end up in medieval Europe. Early medieval Europe is probably the most common polity that's chosen, and that's great. Feudalism is honestly probably the best built for fantasy role-playing, because there's so much, if you talk about early feudalism, there's so much ability to move, you know, laterally up and down the social strata that it's perfectly built for a player who wants his character to start at first level as a fighter in a village, but end as King Conan type thing, you know, lording over it. The feudalism works really well, and it's probably the most, King Conan disagreed, it works well for this type of thing, but you don't have to limit yourself. We'll fire away at King Kothar. Now remember, I'm talking early feudalism, early 900s, 800s, before becoming a knight. You know, I can't remember, it's in the 1300s, I think, or maybe the 1200s, that they actually began to really clamp down on who can become a knight, who can own land, and stuff like that. Earlier on, you actually could do it through force of arms, but that changed. That changed pretty drastically by the 1300s. But regardless of wherever we land on this discussion, choosing whatever polity it is that you want gives you and again, it's just a shell of what you're doing, of where you're going to go in the immediate vicinity as you expand out and beyond, leaving your local settlement and into whatever happens. So I'm assuming, what the hell did I do? Man, every time I touch something on that screen, it goes goofy. At least I saved your whatever the hell that thing's called. Your graphic. We're just going to go to the graphic panel. Good Lord. Now, I assume, King Kothar, you're throwing your opinion out. We're going to wait for that. But that's this week's GM Tricks of the Trade. Next week, I'm going to keep going on the setting. Probably about one more week. I don't want to bore everybody. I kind of want to just nothing was thematic. It was just stuff, whatever, things that I thought would help new GMs and even old GMs, but in a lot of cases new GMs. Those of us who have been stomping around the table for a while, I've kind of learned to tackle this, that, or the other. I guess when I have that glare on my glasses, it's like cool sunglasses or something. I got to fix that. Chuck sent me a whole bunch of links, which I will get into this weekend and buy some new equipment. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks we'll see an improvement in quality here. All right, so let me read King 𝐓𝐫𝐢𝐜𝐤𝐬's response. There was a period between the decline of the Greek city-states and the rise of the Roman Republic where the world was in flux. It was a mixing of religions, ideas, and cultures across North Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, and Western Asia. There was much more wandering, changes in social structure, and the very nature of the world is one of change and meritocracy. Now, that's a good point. Now, I know, I'll be honest with you, I know very little about, so you're talking roughly, so you're talking before, we're what, about 400 BC to 200 BC, so Alexander the Great's time frame, and you're dead on there. The whole European, or the whole Mediterranean basin was in shifting left. Egypt was declining rapidly, and the Greeks were building colonies everywhere, all along the very small colonies. They weren't big. They're really just trading colonies, and you had them in southern France. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've got, yeah, he would be a great in BC, but I think we've got some rumors that the Greeks actually left the Mediterranean and poked around on the northern coasts of Europe. I seem to remember reading that somewhere. I don't know if we've got like archaeological evidence or written evidence, or if it's just something I read somewhere, if it lodged in some misfiring brain cell. But yeah, no, that is a great period, and honestly, if you get even into the Roman Republic, is a great period as well, because you've got all of these small city-states everywhere, some which are actual kingdoms, tiny little kingdoms, autocratic monarchies, and some obviously are developing along the lines of the Romans and the Greeks with voting and whatnot. So that's a really good point. This is the only thing mentally. Now, this is technologically, the technological developments have nothing to do with the polity, right? Well, they do, but not necessarily. But this period would be Bronze Age period, which is really, really cool, not Iron Age, but there's absolutely no reason you couldn't take this period that 𝐓𝐫𝐢𝐜𝐤𝐬 was talking about and make it an Iron Age or what a Renaissance. None of that matters. But what really matters is that, and that's really good advice, 𝐓𝐶𝐤𝐜𝐤, because much like early feudal Europe, you've got a lot of movement, and that's for the polity of your setting. You really want a lot of movement. You don't really want one sprawling empire that controls everything, because it doesn't give your characters, your players, much room to grow, and it doesn't give you room to grow. Say you've started this thing, and a year later you read a book, you watch a movie, and you want to integrate that into your whatever cool concept was in that, entertainment venue. You can't integrate that into your setting if you've made everything this giant one polity. So picking a period like 𝐓𝐶𝐤𝐜𝐤 was talking about, or the feudal era, or Europe. Again, I'm way out of my water in the 1500s, but I think Germany and Italy were all broken to pieces in a thousand chunks, or something like that. Anything that allows your players to move and navigate and to conquer their own regions, because at the end of the day, a good 30% of your players are going to want to own their own kingdom or tower or land or control something, and this is kind of what we're talking about, creating a setting, and we'll really go into this next week with bringing players into the creation process. This setting is to run adventures in, or your adventures are to make the setting, either way, and it's really designed so everybody can have a lot of fun, and the more fun they can have, the better off it's going to be. And if you take 𝐓𝐶𝐤𝐜𝐤's example of host Greek city-states up through early Rome, or mine with feudalism, or the Italian city-states, whatever it is that gives them the ability to expand, is going to be better. That said, it's your setting. If you want to do the Imperial Rome or type thing, go for it. Do what it is that you want to do, that you kind of envision it. Because the nice thing is, as the GM, and this is the best thing about being a GM, if you create an empire and you find a year after gaming that it's kind of stifling and it's not letting you do what you want to do, destroy the empire. You can happily do that, and you don't even have to have the characters involved. You could have marauding barbarians from the north swoop in, the emperor is slain, and everything is in chaos. Everything is in flux. I borrowed your word, King 𝐓𝐶𝐤𝐜𝐤. That's a great word. Everything is in flux, and now you've broken it apart like you want it to do. So that's the joy of being a GM. You can shift gears easily without derailing your own game. Hey, 42 Data, how's it going, man? Yeah, we're winding down now. But we'll get the video up after a while. Assassin's Creed Odyssey again. Man, I played a little bit of Assassin's Creed. I just fired up GM's Tricks. Oh, not GM's Tricks. I just fired up GTA not long ago. I'm going to start playing Grand Theft Auto again. They need to come out with number 6. Dark Ages is also a great time. That's my favorite. A great time change. The Empire crumbled, the plague left cities abandoned across time, and remote kingdoms. Honestly, I love the period, even in European history. I love reading about roughly 700, maybe 500. We just don't know that much. But about 700 to about 900 to 1000. I just love that period. It's so much stuff is moving. There's so much heroism. There's so many battles. There's so many, and everything's kind of contained. You know, it's not these gigantic armies sweeping across the plains of France. It's small feudal kingdoms and holdings that are fighting each other. It just makes it more interesting to me. And for the game context, it's just better, I think, for players because it gives them an area to grow into and throughout. So that's my preference. Certainly, all over the internet you can find all kinds of Pleiades. In the Castle Keeper's Guide, we cover a good 10 or 15 of them in some detail. The CKG really does have some great world building, setting building material to get you started now. To deeply flesh it out, you're going to have to kind of expand out into other books. One of the reasons that I wish we still had the 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐬 Fantasy World series in print, because those 7 books, I think, are an absolute perfect complement to CKG. The CKG gets you kind of a taste of everything, and those books take each of those subjects and expands them to the canting crew and your thieves guilds, to the world builder, to the living fantasy, to the nation builder, to all kinds of stuff. Absolutely great setting. Dark Ages, I may have destroyed a city or two as a DM. Yep. It happens frequently. I'm probably fixing to do that in my game in the next 4 or 5 games. I'm fixing to have some rolling thunder come through. I've kind of DM'd myself, GM CK'd, because I'm playing Castles of Sett, kind of CK'd myself into a corner that I'm not happy with, and I'm fixing to CK myself out of it. So I get a good grip on what's going on. I don't like how it went. It didn't play out how I had hoped that it would, and it's no one's fault, probably my own, but it's going to end with a little bit of shift, political shifts and a bunch of death. Not character death, just NPC death, but that's coming soon. All right, well, that's it for this week's GM's Tricks of the Trade. I want to thank you all for coming wandering out and joining me tonight. Now, we are looking at a possible time change for the GM's Tricks of the Trade. We're looking at maybe a little earlier. We don't know. It'll be here next week, definitely. If you hear nothing, it'll be at 8 o'clock Thursday night next week. But we may shift it a little bit earlier. If you have any, yeah, there you go. And get on the minnow. If you have any thoughts about, times or whatever, just certainly let us know what you're thinking. But we're kind of thinking about another daytime slot for this. Maybe Thursday at 4 o'clock. I don't know. I've talked just a little bit to him about it. Haven't mentioned it to Chuck at all. But that's us for tonight. Are we rating? I think we're rating. Chuck's texting me over there. Yes, we are rating. Okay, so here in a moment, Chuck's going to shut us down and throw us off. So thank you all again for coming out and joining us. I sure appreciate it. Love the back and forth in the stream here. I absolutely love just y'all's ideas. King Color, I'd never really thought about that. It's a perfect example of it. Just learn more every time we sit down and game. So thank you all for coming out, and we will see you next Tuesday, then Wednesday, then Thursday, and Chuck, of course, has a game on Saturday with you running. And one of these days, I'm going to get a game up on here. One of these days. It's going to happen. All right, how's the raid looking, Chuck? Tell me when to end the stream. I know that you are listening to me. I got more crazy videos to watch about people disappearing. I got to stop watching. What we need to do, King, is just get everybody here in the game. If you're in the stream, you're in the game. That would be cool. End stream. All right. All y'all have a great evening. We will see you next week.